The Feast of the Immaculate Conception was, for Padre Pio, one of the holiest days of the year, a spiritual sunrise that illuminated the entire church with graces few people understood, but many desperately needed. While most Catholics knew the date simply as a Marian feast on the calendar, Padre Pio saw far more. To him, this day was a doorway, one that opened heaven in a unique way, pouring out graces that could cleanse, heal, and transform souls if only people approached it with the right intention and humility. Whenever December 8th drew near, something changed in him. His gaze grew softer, his prayers longer, and his silence deeper, as though he were standing in the presence of the Queen of Heaven in a special and tangible way. Those close to him often said that on this feast, Padre Pio seemed to live more in heaven than on earth. He believed that the mystery, celebrated on this day, Mary being conceived without sin, was not only a truth about her, but a revelation about God's mercy toward humanity. In Mary's purity, he saw a reflection of what God desired for every soul: freedom from darkness, the restoration of innocence, and the triumph of grace over the wounds left by sin. Because of this, Padre Pio insisted that Catholics should never approach this feast casually. It was, in his eyes, a spiritual opportunity that should be seized with reverence, preparation, and profound trust. He believed that on December 8th, the Virgin Mary walked among her children in a special way, ready to distribute extraordinary graces to those who opened their hearts to her. In his letters and teachings, Padre Pio constantly encouraged the faithful to prepare for the feast rather than simply arrive at it. He recommended beginning 9 days earlier, offering a novena of prayer that softened the heart and made it more receptive to grace. He urged people to pray the rosary with deeper devotion, to examine their conscience thoroughly, and if possible, to seek the sacrament of reconciliation, so that no stain of sin would block the flow of graces Mary desired to give. He believed that when a soul approached this feast with humility and purity of intention, Our Lady could work miracles in it, freeing it from spiritual chains, renewing its strength, and healing wounds that had long caused pain. For Padre Pio, preparation was not optional. It was the key that opened the heart to heaven's gifts. Those who lived with him testified that he spent most of the vigil of the feast in prayer, almost entirely withdrawn from the world. They would find him in the chapel late into the night, kneeling before the tabernacle with his rosary in hand, his lips moving silently in prayer, his devotion to the Immaculate Conception ran so deep that even the friars sometimes felt an atmosphere of holiness fill the monastery during this time. It was as if Padre Pio's own soul became a doorway through which heaven touched the earth more closely. Many who attended his Mass on December 8th described it as one of the most moving experiences of their lives. During the consecration, he often appeared to be in ecstasy, as though he were seeing realities hidden from the rest of the world. His voice would tremble, his eyes would fill with tears, and his entire being seemed consumed with awe. Padre Pio often said that the devil had a particular hatred for the truth of the Immaculate Conception, because it represented everything he had lost forever. Mary's purity was a wound that Satan could never heal from, a constant reminder of God's victory over evil. For this reason, Padre Pio urged believers to take refuge in Mary on this feast, explaining that honoring the Immaculate Conception weakened demonic influence and brought powerful protection over families. He told people that if they ever felt overwhelmed by temptations or spiritual struggles, they should run to Mary, especially on her feast days. For him, the Immaculate Conception was a shield, a luminous mantle under which the devil could not operate freely. But what he emphasized the most was the posture of the heart. According to Padre Pio, the Virgin Mary does not measure our worthiness by our perfection, but by our willingness. A humble heart, he said, attracts more grace than a proud one, and Mary delights in helping those who recognize their need for her. He encouraged Catholics to approach her on December 8th with the honesty of a child, placing their fears, weaknesses, and failures in her hands. He believed that Mary's purity was not meant to intimidate us, but to inspire hope, showing what God's grace could do in any soul that surrendered to his love. In Mary, he saw the model of what it meant to let God work freely, and he wanted every Catholic to experience the same freedom. One of the prayers Padre Pio promoted with deep conviction on this feast was the simple but powerful invocation, "O Mary, conceived without sin, pray for us who have recourse to you." He said that this prayer, when said with faith, opens channels of grace that touch every aspect of life. He recommended praying it throughout the day on December 8th, upon waking, before meals, during moments of temptation, and before going to sleep. According to him, each repetition was like a knock on the door of Mary's heart, and she never failed to answer. Another practice he considered essential on this day was consecration to the Virgin Mary. Padre Pio believed that entrusting oneself entirely to her brought immense protection and spiritual growth. He often said that Mary guides, guards, and shapes the souls who are consecrated to her, leading them gently toward God. He encouraged spiritual children to renew their consecration annually on the feast of the Immaculate Conception, believing that Mary becomes especially attentive to those who place themselves under her care on this particular day. For Padre Pio, consecration was not merely a devotional act, but a lifelong attitude of trust, surrender, and love. People who came to him burdened with family problems, illnesses, addictions, or spiritual dryness often received the same advice: turn to Mary, especially on her feast. He knew that her intercession brought healing not only to individuals, but to households torn by conflict or fear. He said that when a family honored Mary's Immaculate Conception with faith, she would enter that home like a mother, bringing peace, unity, and grace where there had been division or sorrow. For Padre Pio, Mary's presence was not symbolic, it was real, maternal, and powerful. Every year, as the feast of the Immaculate Conception approached, Padre Pio reminded the faithful that receiving grace is not complicated. It simply requires openness. He taught that even a small act of love, a single prayer said with sincerity, could draw down enormous blessings. What mattered was not the length of our prayer, but the disposition of our heart. Mary, he said, never fails to notice a soul that reaches out to her, no matter how weak or imperfect it may be. In the quiet simplicity of Padre Pio's teachings, a profound truth emerges. The Virgin Mary desires to fill her children with grace, and the Feast of the Immaculate Conception is a privileged moment to experience her love. For those who approach her with humility, trust, and a willingness to change, she pours out blessings in ways that often cannot be measured or explained. Padre Pio knew this well, for he lived it every year, allowing himself to be shaped, purified, and uplifted by her maternal presence. To honor this feast, as Padre Pio taught, is to step into a current of grace that flows directly from the heart of God through the hands of his mother. It is an invitation to purity, renewal, and hope. And it is a reminder that in a world overshadowed by confusion and sin, the light of the Immaculate Conception still shines with a brilliance powerful enough to heal souls, transform families, and guide the faithful back to the love that created them. Share it and subscribe to our channel for more beautiful visions from Padre Pio.